Hi everyone and no one. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I'm trying to see if I can record no matter where I am. So I'm recording on another computer, and so this is going to be a different audio. So I don't know how it's going to come out. We'll see. I probably should have a headset on. Anyway, it's an experiment. My cat's peeking out. Anyway, I missed last week. I had digressed, if you want to call it that, since we're not in time and space, and we are this, I guess this illusory self is in time and space. But anyway, so I'm speaking from that point of view. So, I a couple of weeks ago I had this reactionary event that took place, and I took it personally, I suppose. And well, I know. And so it caused something in me to not be able to sit with it, because instead of being in that unperturbable space of awareness that isn't really a space, but instead of being my true self, I was definitely in my illusory, limited self, and unable to sit with it because there was something in me that was reacting and rejecting. And that's not a good time to sit with anything, because you won't look at it openly in the first place. In the second place, you don't even want to sit with it because you just want to avoid or watch a movie, get away from it. And of course I've had this happen 1,000 million times in my life, but what I mean is recently in my studies and things, and being a student of Rupert Spira, and that being so wonderful for me, those types of things were getting further and further apart, and I felt like my identity was very permeable and translucent. So it was not, I thought my identity wasn't quite as restricting as it still is, because it took me a couple of weeks to really be through it enough to where I could actually sit and say, okay, being perturbed and not being able to see through the clutter of that perturbableness, I don't know what word to use, but after a while it started, breaking away, and I started relaxing more, and because I was getting very tired fighting it. Being perturbed was making me really tired. I just wanted to take naps or go to sleep, or I was tired at work. I was getting really run down. Felt like I was getting sick almost. So I really let it take hold, and that was great, because it was another one of those moments that's black and white, when I finally said to myself, when things finally lightened up enough to say, okay, what just happened? Let me sit with it. I was ready to sit with it. And I was looking at myself. You know, I'm always saying I'm going to bring up a question or whatever, but I'm too much of a student to bring up a question and talk about it, because all these things are happening and I want to share them, because that's a lesson in itself. Because if when I go through something and I share it, it might be something, if anybody were to watch, which I don't think anyone is, but if anybody were to watch, it might be a help to they might go through these things too, and might help someone somewhere going through it, or not, or it just helps me talking to the ether, the camera, whatever, just to talk, communicate, get it out in words, try to say it better than I did before. Of course, the experience is always a new experience, but explaining it better probably gets better doing it, I would imagine. I don't know. I think so. I feel so. So that's good so. Anyway, so point being that when I did find that little window, I wouldn't call it a window, it was wide open, where I thought, okay, what just happened? Let me sit with it. And it felt so good. So I was okay. I was affected. It was obviously my identity rejecting, or there was something I didn't like that was happening to me from someone. It's a contradiction from a person on the outside that does this contradictory thing that throws me for a loop, and it's about me. And so I took it personally. Because there's things thrown to you right and left, and one says one thing, one says another, and it just gets very awkward and confusing, and you feel like you're in the wrong, and you don't know why, and you don't feel like you're really in the wrong, but you feel like you're fighting something. You're like, you don't want to feel the way you're feeling right at that moment when these things are coming at you. So from out here, not in my home, but elsewhere. Anyway, so not to, details don't matter, because it's just can be anything that does that to you, that comes at you in a contradictory way that you don't understand, and it's about you. And 1 minute it was just the opposite, and then the next minute it's different, and you're like, you don't know how to be good or how to be right when you can't please anyone. So there's the trick there. You want to please someone. That identity wants to please someone, to stay as a whole identity, to be okay with itself, that ego. So then I had to go back to my identities, and so when I went back, because, my first question in the here and now is to say, who am I really? Right? And sometimes that, you can't answer that right away. I mean, you know it. Intellectually, you know it from your studies, but you can't go there right away. So, to that unperturbable, peaceful, loving place that you want to be. And then all of a sudden, when the identity thing came up and I started thinking about my identities, that started opening up, where I was coming to that peaceful self and realizing that these identities come and go, and I could see it coming and going, and I could see it leave me and me feel spacious, and that's related to time. The words don't work, but anyway, just to feel that loving being place. Okay, so I'm in and out of that, and I'm thinking back, and I'm thinking, okay, my first identity as a person I had growing up, and that identity had a name, and I was very insecure, and I was always looking for love in people or things, a doll or a dog or a person or anything that would love me, and I'd love them back, of course. But there's a trick there too. Somehow I'm loving them because they're loving me. It's a need. You're looking for love, like Rupert says. We are looking inward. I was hurting inward. I wanted that I wanted to get peace, get love. I wanted someone to love that away so that I could be grateful and love back. So that was the first years and years and years and years and years and years, probably until I was 57 or so. And then the next one was the spiritual, because life granted me that I worked on it, but well, I shouldn't say worked on it, but I'd say that people came into my life, and I brought so many things came and went, circumstances that I attached to and had to let go of and attach to and let go of and attach to and let go of, and I just really felt like a pinball in a pinball machine. And that was very crazy and hurtful, and it spit me out and into the spiritual realm. I had a respite in life. I had a friend that helped me have a respite in life where I could just relax and go inward but I say inward, but all this time I'd say you're inward, but then you're outwardly reaching for that inward solution. So even in the spiritual realm, I went into the beauty stage where I was still looking for beauty, a beautiful place, or art, or my eyes were looking. I was seeing different because I wasn't seeing through pain. I was seeing beauty and nature, and I was just getting I was always close to nature though, but it was in an internal way. I wanted to love it to death. And now it was just I was enjoying beauty and all of that. And that was the second identity. Because after the first identity, that whole world fell apart. And I had to rebuild it as I just became outwardly someone else. Of course, we know the core is always the same, our source, and who we truly are is always the same. But outwardly, I completely walked a new life of beauty and a respite from all the chaos and confusion. And I felt like the second identity was much, much less cluttered because I was able to just leave a lot of things behind that were too confusing to figure out because there were too many people involved. And loving them all made me crazy because I can't figure them all out. It was one thing figuring out my parents. I felt like I was able to do that. So that was good. But this was too much crazy stuff to figure out. And so I walked into a peaceful place and just how I felt about it was that I let things go back to who they belong to. So I was just like, this is yours, and this is a personal thing that inside you're doing. It's not something like you go knock on the door and say, here's a package of crap that you can have because I can't hold it anymore. It's just but internally you're thinking, all of this feeling that I have inside came from here, how this has been, how I've reacted to this, to that part, and I've reacted to you, and I've reacted to you, and I've reacted to you. So when I did that, it was like I was left with much less confusion, and I was at least getting close to my core, not knowing it, but I was feeling way more peaceful and loving, and not so confused and hurt and all of that. So it was a really good new beginning, a new identity. And I even changed my name. So because I couldn't do it without doing that for some reason. I didn't think the old me had the strength to walk away or walk into a respite like that. And so I had to change my name, and that worked. So I did it legally, and I walked that way. But even as that new identity, I still accumulated things as my identity because I hadn't found Rupert yet. So how exciting is this? I mean, this is such a trip. So I had found, through this phase though, I had done many searches spiritually, nature, God, source, still looking, I think, way too outwardly at everything, but I didn't know it. I felt like I felt everything was one, and I felt non-dual, but I really wasn't. But I didn't know that. So I still had a strong identity, a new identity, but a strong one that was trying to probably grow strong. And so it seemed like my first identity was floating in feelings, and my second identity was learning how to think. So I was putting together these thoughts of how life is without any interference at all. And I wasn't shabby at it, I was okay at it. And then Rupert came along, and it really matched up my feelings, and my head was pretty, not bad, thinking that I didn't have a head before. I just felt everything. It's weird. But anyway, that's true. Maybe females do that a lot, live by their feelings. I don't know, because I never really had a girlfriend. I mean, I did when I was younger, but everybody thought that was weird. So, and then when I did have a friend, that didn't work out because my life was kind of crazy, and so they were like, don't call me, and I'll call you. Anyway, so, and also, when I was married, I was married, and that person was all that was. And so, but I have been married a few times, and that's not kosher for people. But it was a beautiful experience as I learned completely different things. I learned from my first, we don't want to go. I can do that another time, because it's all totally understandable how events, how these things took place. Nonetheless, where I am is with Rupert now, and so I had this life event affected me, which I had been doing so well with my studies and with this understanding and constantly remembering who are you really, and doing very well at just stopping and remembering and going to that peaceful place. And nothing has really tilted me until this. I mean, it did early on. Early on, I was tilted a lot. I was still reacting to things and resisting things, and having a hard time with work-home balance of identity, and this interplays here too. But so the main thing that I wanted to get to is I'm trying to get to this. I don't want to. There's no what do people call it? Well, anyway, I got to this understanding that brought me back to my peaceful self by going back through these identities. And so, but I had to wait until enough calm in the storm took place so that I could sit with it and let it come to me. So, and not try to find out. It was just, let me sit with this. So the first thing that happened when I sat with it was my first identity came into view. And then it webbed and waned into the second identity, how that came about and how that I took on. I took off the clothes of one and put on the clothes of another, like an actor on a stage. And that's exactly what happened when I sat with it. I remembered John Smith and King Lear, the story Rupert always tells. And that's when I had that aha moment. I'll call it that just for the sake of having a cool thing to call it. It's, people are always searching for that. But that's not what I mean. You know what I mean. It's just that understanding where you go, it's a relaxing, it's just a weight off of you when you just see clearly, period. That's just the way it is. So, I had that, I was looking at these identities and I was thinking about King Lear and his daughters and the war and all of these things that were happening, that were catching him up in the world of King Lear, and how he had lost himself to it. And I totally could see how I had done that in no matter a different intensity than the second identity is a different intensity, was kind of, but one was from a feeling aspect and one was from an intellectual aspect, these identities. So I think life was having me try to be whole, I guess. But anyway, so the actor, me being the actor, I went through that feeling part and I went through the intellectual part. And all the circumstances were still there. I mean, there were circumstances that played, it was just different battles, different wars approached in different ways. And so there was still all the waves of the ocean, of course, were all there, just in different intensities, in different ways, in different circumstances. And then all of a sudden, instead of asking myself the question, who am I really? I was just sitting there, sitting with it all, and these thoughts and feelings floating by. And then I was like, I am John Smith. But I mean, I am John Smith. I'm not the actor on the stage. I mean, the peace of that moment, when it came to me, it was just like, not who am I really, but I am John Smith. I'm not those identities. So I just don't think I got it before. I thought I had. So it's kind of like Rupert says, you get a glimpse of it, but I thought I had more than a glimpse, but you always do, because you just feel so good about yourself. There's that identity thing again. It always plays tricks on us. So you always think you're grooving, Mr. Ego, right? So, enough for that. I am John Smith. Wow, I know I was walking in that. I went to the park and I call it jog. People say it's walking because they can't see me jog, but I am jogging. It's just, maybe that's my ego. But I have a bounce. There's something going on there, and I call it a jog. Nonetheless, whatever. So, I am John Smith just sat with me. And then the hilarious thing was, what's the female part? John Smith. So I could just see myself introducing myself as John Smith accidentally, and that would be another interesting event. So then I thought, well, I'm Jane Doe. I'm Jane Doe then. That was pretty funny to me. But, accurate. It's very accurate. So I enjoyed it anyway. And, yeah. So I went on this journey, and now that I am Jane Doe, at this moment, I'm nobody. It was just really nice. So that's my little sitcom there, if you want to call it that. I don't want to call it that, but if you do, but you're not there either. So since neither one of us are here, that's it. I think I'll turn off the video now and see you next week. So it's bye nobody. This is nobody signing off to nobody.